guys will be doing to take your exam. Go ahead and download the Respondus. Okay, here's where you get it from, and then this is a practice exam that you can take. It doesn't count for a grade. Okay, how this works for those that are familiar with it, you open up Respondus and then you go through Respondus to Blackboard, and what it does is it locks down your computer. You can't open anything. It activates your camera, so your camera must be working, your mic, and it records you the entire time. Don't cheat. I don't want to give people zeros. I will give someone a zero in a heartbeat if I catch you cheating. I got no problem doing that. Okay? Cheating is really unfair. You'll need your ID. You need to show a photo ID. It doesn't matter what kind. You could use your student ID. It doesn't matter. I don't know what a lot of you look like, so that's why you need your IDs. Do not have a light behind you, so make sure you watch the video and everything. You're going to have to show your environment. So when you show your environment, I need to show okay. Don't have anything out. You can't have your phone sitting there. That's a big no-no. All right? That'll constitute a zero. So do not attempt to cheat. So yeah, you guys do the policy quiz. It'll unlock these folders here. And this is where you're going to find your assignments, everything that we're covering. Right? This is what we need to accomplish. There are videos in here. These are a great resource. Dr. Schultz did the videos. These are, she was our former dean. These will help you go through and fill out your lecture notes before class. So this is how we succeed in our AMB2 courses. We watch the video before class. We fill out the lecture notes as much as we can. They won't be in order per se to the lecture notes because we tweak the lecture notes, but we couldn't tweak the videos. Okay. Yeah, as long as Christine, as long as you show me their earbuds, don't earplugs. Sorry, don't use headphones, because headphones, I can assume you're reading out questions or something, and I would assume that you're reading to someone and they're reading an answer to you. So use little rubber ones. Show it to me. Stick it in. That's fine. But we prefer you take it in a quiet area. I get it if you have kids, stuff like that. I get it. They're going to make some noise. Yeah, as long as it's not something with a bag where it's got writing all over it or something. Just make sure it doesn't look like you're cheating. If you have a water bottle, show it to me. No writing on it. Stuff like that. Okay. So yeah, the videos are very helpful. Do not watch the videos over and over. I get students... yeah, oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah, we'll send out the password when it gets close to exam time. We'll send out what the password is for the exam that you'll need to access it. What was I saying? I just blanked. Oh yeah, do not watch the videos multiple times. That is a quick way to fail or do very poorly in the class. Watch them once. As you're watching them, fill out your lecture notes. Come to the lecture. I'll help you fill in the blanks. That's the goal of lecture, make you understand. And then after, if you're studying, you still don't understand something, go back to that section of the video, and that's it. Watch that little section, move along. Don't waste your time watching the videos repeatedly. I've had students do that. They fail horrendously. Some people like to put them on while they're driving. They'll have the recording playing as they're driving and they hear it in the background. If you want to do that, that's fine. But that shouldn't be your primary way of using the videos. That's a secondary. I'm just passing time as I'm driving. Cool. The other resource that you're going to use is SoftChalks. Those are for a grade also. They will help you fill out the lecture notes. Okay, so here's the SoftChalks. They're unlimited attempts, so I should see nothing but 100s. They're interactive. There's quizzes in here. There was issues with them because of Adobe. So what we did is we're not using the quizzes here. The quiz that is for your grade is down here. So you'll do the SoftChalks. You'll run through them, or you can have them open while you do the quiz. Okay. Then here is your homework. Homework is one attempt. Remember that due by 11:59 or it's a zero. One attempt. Make sure you go through that. Okay. There's PDFs. They made PDFs of the SoftChalks, so you can just open those up and go through them. I'll show you what it looks like. These follow from our textbook. They 2 is a lot of information. AMP2 is no joke. It's going to seem easier for a lot of you guys because it's more understanding and logic versus memorization. For our new people to GC, it's going to blow your minds. I can just tell you now, every student pretty much that I've had come from outside, our AMP is pretty intense. And the reason it's pretty intense because you can take our AMPs and they're accepted at any university or college in Georgia because we've brought it up to that level. So don't slack, don't take it lightly, don't start off on the wrong foot, be proactive, start studying if you have not already. So yeah, I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just trying to make you like keep it real with y'all, okay? I want you guys to do well, and so that's why I'm telling you right off the bat, like what you need to do, okay? I don't want you to get caught off guard. All right, any questions about Blackboard? Yeah, homework, you can use any resource, it's open book, but just get one attempt at it, okay? And there are PowerPoints on Blackboard. Mine are built off of that. I didn't even build my own. I got them from one of the other instructors. I've tweaked as we've gone along kind of thing. So the ones that you find online are going to be very similar. And once again, if you record the lecture, you have my PowerPoints then. Okay? All right. Let's pull up. Any questions so far? So yeah, I like to ask questions. I like when you guys ask questions. If you don't have your lecture notes yet, that's fine. Make sure you go get them today, tomorrow, that kind of thing. Take notes, right? The problem with taking your own notes and not following the lecture note is you don't know what's really that important, what's not, that kind of thing. Sometimes we cover extra stuff in lecture to help make sense of things. And the lecture notes is where the tests come from. Nothing on the test will come outside of the lecture notes. We have 4 tests and then a cumulative final exam. So everything from today on is fair game for that final exam. All right. So go ahead and start. Anyone have? What do you guys use for screen record? I don't even know. I never asked. Oh, just your laptop does it. Oh, that's fancy. Oh, Vimeo. Oh, okay. See, I got one of those dumb Macs. That's why mine doesn't do that. See, you live in the struggle, Rebecca. Live in the struggle. Man. Oh, Mac knows it. Man, Stacy knows all the tricks with Mac. There's a little iPad, she draws her notes. Shift Command 5. Okay, good to know. All right, so we can do it. We got this. All right, so digestive canal. Just where we start off, digestive is pretty big. Okay, so it takes a little time to get through. Yes, there's 152 slides. There's a lot of redundancy in there, so don't panic when you see that. As far as the digestive tract goes, it's kind of wild to think about this, but you're actually a donut. There is a hole all the way from your mouth to your anus that is continuous. And as we're passing through that is the canal, the alimentary canal or digestive tract that we're passing through. And then there's accessory organs that work with that. And as far as those accessory organs go, like your liver, for example, making bile helps break down fat, stuff like that. The pancreas, making enzymes to break things down. Those are your accessory organs. And we're going to talk about all of that. Okay? So, alimentary canal, that's where the food is actually passing through. So, mouth to anus, all the way through. The food is technically external to the body in a sense. So, that being said, that is an entry point to the body. There's organisms potentially entering the body, and that's why, like in the stomach, for example, we see acid. It's to kill things. As it's passing through, we digest it, we break it down, and then we absorb it. And we pull it into the bloodstream. And that's key. That's how we get our nutrition. That's how we, in the end, make sugar. That's what the body wants. It wants glucose. In the end, it wants glucose. Everything you eat can be turned into glucose. Wild as that sounds. If you ate just straight protein, went on a keto diet, end result, glucose. Straight fat, doesn't matter. Glucose, that's the end result. Your body can generate glucose from it. Excess glucose gets stored. We can convert it into fat. We can convert it into other things. So it doesn't matter what you eat. You are what you eat, I guess, right? I eat a lot of donuts, so I'm a donut, that kind of thing. We're not a donut at ages. Kind of sad. All right. We're going to run through all of this, but basically you're looking at the mouth, esophagus, down to stomach, then small intestines. We'll go through different portions of the small intestine, which are the duodenum, jejunum, ileum, and then finally we'll go to large intestine, ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid, and then rectum or colon. So when you eat something, food is passing through here, and then once we hit the stomach, we really start to break things down. We break down protein specifically. And as we go through, we have enzymes that are released, we break them down, we absorb in the small intestine. Once we get large intestine, it's waste, stool. The last thing you're pulling out of there is a little bit of water, and that's it. Oh, I don't know why it does this. Hold on. It glitches on Blackboard. The PowerPoint sometimes won't do like their overlay. It's fine. We're gonna walk through all of it anyways. You guys have learned some of this already from AMP 1. As far as the pharynx goes, you have the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngeo. So naso, what passes through nasopharynx? Only one thing. If you're awake on a Monday morning. Air, correct. And then oro and laryngeo, what passes through there? Food and air. Food and air. Okay. Alright. So as far as accessory organs go, we cover all of these. We talk about all of them. Basically, they are helping in digestion or absorption. They're helping that process being able to be undergone. So teeth, like they're mashing up the food. We're breaking the food into smaller portions. Tongue, we're manipulating it with saliva so that it can be swallowed. The salivary glands help with the swallowing process. They have amylase in them, so they help break down carbs. Gallbladder stores and concentrates bile, which will help with the breakdown of fat. There's a bunch of digestive glands we'll talk about. The liver producing like bile, for example, storing excess glucose, breaking down excess stored glucose, and then pancreas. Pancreas has a bunch of enzymatic action. It helps break down a lot of your food. Without that guy, you could eat all you want and you'd lose weight. Okay, it's not functioning, you would die. So kind of need him. You need to know each section because they could ask some silly question like I just asked, like what parts do food pass through? Only oro and narrow. So you do need to know the specifics. Do you have another question, Danielle?
Sorry, I'm just going to talk. It's easier.
Yeah.
When I'm mentioning when it says name the structures of the alimentary canal, when it comes to a question like that, do you name every individual part of the pharynx or just saying pharynx is okay is what I meant. If that makes sense.
So I would, here's how I would do it. I would name like the general structures like pharynx, but then I would bridge off and say the 3 structures. That way, when you're learning it, like you're following like that breakdown. On the test, if they ask a question like that, probably just pharynx would be fine. I don't think in a generalized question like that, if they ask you to list like all the parts like we're looking at now, pharynx would be sufficient. If they ask for the section of the pharynx, then you need to know all 3. Cool. Yeah, AMP2 and in general, like with all our courses, detail is important. So the more detail that there is, the better you're gonna do. What's up, Destiny? Hello? accessory glands go, and this is what I was talking about just a second ago, like Danielle, like salivary glands, yes, is part of it, but you need to know the subsections of it. So like under salivary glands, exocrine, meaning they excrete out of the body. We have parotid, sublingual, submandibular. Pancreas, both exocrine and endocrine, so it will secrete things out like bicarb, which is going to help neutralize the acid that's coming down from the stomach. And then endocrine, it's going to secrete like insulin, glucagon into the bloodstream to affect glucose levels. Liver, gallbladder, the big job here is bile. So bile helps with breakdown of fat. The liver generates it. The gallbladder stores it and concentrates it. Basically what it does, it takes it, pulls water out of it, and makes it more concentrate. What we're looking at here, this is the liver. Okay. Okay. Why does it need to be concentrated? It's just more effective. That's all. It is not a necessity. Like we remove people's gallbladder all the time. They get some nasty diarrhea for the first couple of weeks every time they eat a fatty meal. After that, it's not a problem unless they eat a huge fatty meal. The liver will step up its game kind of thing and produce more bile. Get around it that way. It just makes it more efficient. Yeah, Destiny. Like if they're asking for like the nasopharynx itself, yes, list all three. If they're asking for like what are just all the parts of the accessory organs, saying the nasopharynx would be sufficient. Or sorry, pharynx, not nasopharynx. One area that food doesn't go through. All right. So we have a full 60 in here. Awesome. Someone added. Sorry, what happened? All right. I see who it is. Hi, Miss Wong, Sam. Sam Wong. Sam Wong? Wong Sam? Wong Sam. Sam. I always want to switch it.
Long Sam is good.
Wong Sam. Okay. The lights keep on dying. There we go. All right. So as far as the structures go here, so we're looking at, we've got the liver. Something else that's going to be, it's all good. Something else that's going to be important with A&B2 is knowing left and rights. Okay, so especially in lab, we're going to stress that you guys are going to need to know left and right when you're identifying things. So please get used to that. Just make a habit of it because it's important in medicine. Like, you know, you go to cut someone's leg off. I want to know which leg I'm cutting off, right? And whose left and right is it? It's always the patient's left and right. Can't stress that enough. Like, for example, I had knee surgery. They verbally asked me which leg. The nurse marked which leg, and then the doctor before he came in, or when he came in before he operated, marked which leg. 3 times they checked. All right. So it is important that you know left and right. So make a habit of it. So coming off the liver here, we have what are the left and right hepatic duct. It's patients left and right. Okay. And then we have the common hepatic duct. Once we hit here, we have the cystic duct, gallbladder. Once these two connect, we have the common bile duct. Here we have the pancreatic duct coming off the pancreas. And then in here we have the ampulla of Vater. Cover that in lab. And then we enter into the duodenum. Okay, so here's stomach. This is duodenum. A little C-shaped guy here. So the gallbladder here is connected through this cystic duct. And the way this works, there's a sphincter here. So a sphincter is an opening that can clench down. Sphincter of Oddi or Oddi. He'll clench down, and this will actually start backing up. Bile will go into here, and it'll sit in here, and then we'll extract water out of it. It'll be concentrated next time you eat. Chemicals will be released that will command the gallbladder to contract. It'll contract, squeeze out, release that concentrated bile out. So that's why we can cut this guy off right here, the cystic duct. We can cut it off, remove the gallbladder, and you're fine. It's not a problem because the rest of the system is still connected. You still have the left and right hepatic duct, common, the common bile duct, So as far as digestive functions go, and for my people that took AMP1 with me or micro, I've told them before, you see a list, you learn the list, okay? Lists are always testable. It's just a given in any class. You see a list, you should know the list. All right? So some terms here, we have ingestion, that means eating and taking it in. Deglutition, that's swallowing. Digestion is breaking down, so it can be mechanical like chewing or churning, and then chemical. What is the order of the hepatic portal system? We'll cover that, Jennifer. We'll get to it. I don't want to jump too far ahead and confuse people who will cover it. Absorption, so that's pulling it into the bloodstream, and then defecation is eliminating the waste. All right. What does defecation mean, or Jennifer's question? Eliminating the waste. Getting rid of stool. This is waste product now. It's pooping, right? Once you hit large intestine, there's no nutritional value in what's coming out. It's all bacteria and just waste, stuff you couldn't break down, or excess food that you could not absorb. We overeat. American culture, we overeat. Society, we overeat. That's just a given. So we defecate a lot. A lot of excess there. And then there's things you can't break down, right? Like eat the corn, see the corn. You don't have the enzyme to break it down. There's a lot of fiber. You can't break down fiber, stuff like that. Come on, eat the corn, see the corn. Stuff like that. Enzymatic ability, length of, cellulose, enzymatic ability, like how much enzyme do you have, right? Enzymes are specific, so they only work on one thing, and you only produce so much. If you eat more protein, you're going to make more proteases, enzymes that break down protein. But say you're a vegan, and like people that were vegans and come back to being meat eaters, they'll tell you this happened to them. If we have anyone in here, I'm sure they can confirm this. If you're a vegan for a period of time and you go back to eating protein, you get diarrhea. That's just guaranteed. And the reason is the body is lazy. That's something you're going to learn. The body is lazy. If I don't need to be making the enzyme that breaks down protein because I'm not consuming protein, I'm not going to make it, or I'll make very minimal amounts. So what happens when they shift back over to being meat eaters, they don't have enough to break it down. It goes through, it causes diarrhea. So anything where you do not have the enzyme to break it down, it can pass through and cause diarrhea. The sugar-free, like gummy bears, let me tell you, those things are horrendous. My wife and I decided to try keto one time. It was very dumb. And I have a sweet tooth. I saw the gummy bears. I got them. I ate the whole pack. Do not have the enzyme to break down that disaccharide, that two-part sugar. We're going to learn about all this in digestion. So that two-part sugar, you can't break it down. It's like cellulose. It passes through you. Water follows. Lovely diarrhea for about 2 hours. Okay? So yeah, it's not fun. So length of track has to do with it. The longer it can pass through, eventually you can start breaking things down. Even if you don't have the enzyme, you can start to break it down a little bit. And then how much enzyme you have. So that's a part of it. So when you overeat, you don't have the enzyme to break it all down, and so that's why a lot of it can be expelled out as stool. Just depends on the meal. All right, so here this is just showing where those terms fall. So like ingestion, we're taking it in. Mechanical digestion, we're breaking it, mashing it with the teeth, manipulating it with the tongue. Propulsion, that's just swallowing. Chemical digestion, we're using chemicals, enzymes, acid, stuff like that. Correct, Christine. Either too fast or there's something stimulating it to pass through. So like certain organisms can cause you to excrete water and for it to pass through. Yeah, gastric bypass patients, because you're shortening the length of where it can sit in the stomach and we can churn it and start to break things down, mash it up a little bit. That's why they can't eat as much, they can't hold as much. They'll vomit or they'll get diarrhea. That's very common. And then they also get like deficits in nutrition. It's another thing too. Absorption. So this is typically in the jejunum and ileum, those portions of the small intestine. That's where we're pulling it into the bloodstream or the lymphatics. Yeah, nutrient deficits. Yeah. And then large intestine. That's just waste. The only thing we're really pulling in is water. And then defecation. And we go till 11:20, right? First day is always kind of a little bit of a rush because how much we got to cover. Okay, cool. So yeah, ingestion, taking that food in. Mastication is the process of chewing, right? Masseter muscle. You guys remember this from AMP1? No, Jeanette, it occurs mainly in the small intestine. In the large intestine, it's the last little like 10% or so. 9% actually. Like 90% occurs in the small intestine, and then you pull out 9 in the large intestine, you leave 1, so you're not pooping fecal bricks. Alright, so if you remember masseter, he's controlled by a trigeminal, and that's what helps with chewing. The tongue, that helps move the food around so we can mix saliva with it, and we create what's called the bolus. So the bolus is what you swallow, it's that chunk or ball of food with saliva. And then the teeth, that's part of mastication. It's grinding it, it's mashing it, breaking it down into smaller pieces, because if it's smaller, you're going to expose it to more acid and to more enzymes. Deglutition, so this is the swallowing. So part of it is voluntary, and then the rest is involuntary. So if it's voluntary, it's skeletal. If it's involuntary, it's going to be smooth muscle. So as far as the innervation, we have trigeminal, facial, glossopharyngeal, and hypoglossal. So, as I was saying, it's voluntary and it's involuntary. It depends on what part of the esophagus you're in. So the buccal region is voluntary. Yes, Christine? Oh, okay. You also have a question, Myos?
Can you
It's
hear
on
me?
you. Yeah.
Okay, my computer is acting correct.
It's the computer or the user? I gotta give Myoski a hard time. She suffered through my AP1, my micro. I gotta give her a hard time. Okay, so yeah. Going back a slide also. It does involve both. It involves, if it's voluntary, it must be skeletal muscle. If there's an involuntary portion, it is also smooth muscle, so it is both. It just depends on the portion of the esophagus we're in. And then are you good, Jerry? If I'm ever going too fast, you need to ask me to go back a slide, let me know. Yes, Stacy?
In the lecture note, she said the esophagus is 25 centimeters, 10 inches long, and it's located in the, where is it located? Where would you say?
Mediastinum? Is that what they're looking for? I believe they're looking for mediastinum.
Thank you.
Well,
That's on page 7.
I don't have my book with me. I think I have it here in my notes, though. We mentioned like where it passes through. I'm pretty sure we have it in here. So, yeah, there's the vagus. I feel like there was a section. We always have this conversation about the vagus does technically have innervation, I believe, or thoracic. Okay, yeah, it's a thoracic cavity. Mediastinum is just getting very specific. Thoracic is fine about where they're saying it passes through. And then she said 10 inches. Do you have another question, Stacy? So yeah, let me just check something. Esophagus, vagus nerve. Yeah, vagus also innervates it, and I think somewhere in like the notes or in the video it does say it. Just my notes don't have it in there. So yeah, vagus also innervates it. So when you look at this is how you define like when there's voluntary, it's skeletal muscle. That's just always a given. If you can control it, it's skeletal muscle. So the buccal region and the pharyngeal, those are voluntary, so they would be skeletal. The lower 2/3, which are the esophageal, that's involuntary. So when you're initially swallowing and it's starting to go down, you have control over that. Think about it, when you're swallowing something, especially if you swallow, can skeletal be involuntary? Yeah, like the diaphragm, that can become involuntary. Try and hold your breath as long as you can, you're gonna pass out and you're gonna breathe whether you like it or not. So yeah, but skeletal is always voluntary too, right? You can still hold your breath, control it. As far as the lower 2/3, that is the involuntary. I can't control that. Once I go past the upper 1/3, I do not control it. It goes on its own after that. It goes on its own all the way till rectum. Once you get to rectum, that's the last bit where there is some voluntary control until you get old. I couldn't resist. All right. Oh man, my wife and I joke. I'm like, the day that happens, where I poop myself, just yank the cord. Just yank the cord. She keeps on trying to yank the cord already, but I haven't pooped myself. I swear. My wife is out just to kill me, I think. She always checks the mail. I'm convinced that there's a life insurance plan she hasn't told me about. Can't blame her. Alright, so buccal region, voluntary. That's where we make that bolus, that food with the with the saliva. And we are going to swallow it. When we go to swallow, there's an important action that happens here. The soft palate right here, and you guys can feel the soft palate. If you take your tongue back across the roof of your mouth, you'll feel like a little ridge, a little pop. That's where you reach this point of the soft palate. It can move, and what it does, it lifts up and seals off that nasopharynx so food does not go through there. And we start to voluntarily swallow. So, we enter the pharyngeal, so the bolus is starting to swallow, or be swallowed, I should say. Trigeminal is working here. And another action happens, the epiglottis. This guy is really important. The epiglottis is here. He folds over and closes off the airway, the trachea. And that's important because we do not want food going down here. If food goes down here, gets onto the lungs, guaranteed infection. We don't want that. So if you ever felt like you swallowed something wrong, especially like fluids, that's where that's common, that happens. You swallow water wrong, you start coughing violently. That's because some water has made it pass through here and your body is trying to eject it out because it knows if that comes down, you're aspirating and you're going to get pneumonia. You're going to end up with a pneumonia, bacterial pneumonia. So it's trying to get rid of it, or an abscess even. So we're moving through the oropharynx, okay, and we're going towards the laryngopharynx. Now we're entering into the esophageal. This is where it's going to start moving on its own. And when it moves on its own through muscle, we refer to that as peristalsis. So peristalsis is this rhythmic movement of smooth muscle. It works by contracting one area, relaxing, holding the contraction here, and then starting to contract and relax and contract and move stuff through. And that's what we're doing, moving this bolus through. Right? This is just the same images we just looked at, so we don't need to waste time on that. Oh, actually there's one point on here we do need to talk about. Up here, you have what is called the upper esophageal sphincter, or UES. This closes off. We always think of like, these tubes being wide open. They're not always wide open. They're collapsed down. Any tube pretty much in the body is always collapsed down unless something is passing through it. The only one that stays open, airway. Why? We have hyaline cartilage here. Okay? to stay patent or open. But everything else pretty much collapses down unless something's passing through it. And we don't want things coming back out and up. So we have the upper esophageal sphincter here to tighten down. So as we're doing peristalsis, food doesn't work its way up. We don't regurgitate it. So we keep moving down the esophagus, and there is the gastroesophageal sphincter or lower esophageal sphincter, the LES, down here. And this is really important. This one will relax when the bolus comes along. You let the food into the stomach and then tighten back down. Why it's so important? What is the stomach full of? What's the stomach full of? Acid, HCl. That is a nasty bugger. The esophagus is not designed to deal with that. It is no for it to come back up in here. It will erode it. It will change the cells. It will cause cancer. So this must tighten down, back down once food comes through. So it's just important. And you got people like me. I have GERD. I have gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD. This has laxity in it. So for me, I get reflux all the time. So what do? I take an antacid. I take a proton pump inhibitor, or PPI. So I take Nexium, or Miprazole, esomeprazole to be exact. I have to take it daily because if I let this acid come up in here, it's asking for cancer. Okay? Plus it's just uncomfortable as all get out. I lay down, acid comes up, cough at night, stuff like that. That's a sign of it. Okay? A lot of people have it. It just doesn't work appropriately. It doesn't tighten down like it should. Problem is, you can do surgery to correct it. You can go in there and they can tighten it, and then it's too tight, and so stuff will come down and come back up. There's no limit. Just take the pen, move along. Alright? So that's why I just take it daily. Yeah. Hiatal hernia. We'll actually cover hiatal hernia too. We'll talk about that. So, yeah, lower esophageal sphincter, it will relax when the bolus comes down, or gastroesophageal sphincter, either or, okay? We'll relax and let the bolus into here, let the food into here.
Hey, Dr. Nakla.
Yeah, what's up?
So in the book it says, how does the body ensure the food enters the esophagus and not the larynx? So would you say that's due to the peristalsis? Is that? Or would I say?
Epiglottis. That's going to be the epiglottis.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you.
So yeah, that epiglottis is going to flop down and prevent the food from going into the trachea and into the lungs. Uvula is preventing from going up to nasopharynx. That's part of the soft palate, so the little dangly guy in the back of your throat, the back of your mouth. That's from stopping it from going up. So when we talk about peristalsis, that is movement through really any smooth muscle tube. Okay, so throughout the GI tract, we mentioned peristalsis. It is to move things along. It is not for helping with like absorption. In other parts of the GI tract, we talk about segmentation. Segmentation is more like a pinching and rotating of it as it's moving along. And so what that does is, say you have nutrients in the center here, we bring them out to the edge so that enzymes being excreted out here can break that down, work on it. So peristalsis is more for just moving it through. So like esophagus, straight peristalsis. When we talk about in the rest of the GI tract, it will do segmentation. Yeah, it's like a mixing or churning of the material. This light is really annoying. This keeps on turning off on me. And we'll mention chyme. Chyme is once the food is mixed with like acid and everything after like it goes through the stomach, we refer to it as chyme. So if we're talking about the esophagus, it's not appropriate to use chyme here. What is white? White? Milky? Is chyme milky? Oh, yeah. In the stomach, yes. Once chyme enters the duodenum, no. Because bile will be mixed in. It'll be greenish then. So it just depends on where you're like talking about it. In the straight stomach, yes, it is whitish. The green the green juice is that's the bile. That's the bile. Yeah. So, upper esophageal sphincter or pharyngesophageal sphincter, okay? So this is where the pharynx and esophagus are. This is what lets food into the esophagus. Esophageal diverticulum, they could have consumed something that damaged it. It could be outpouching of just the esophagus, retching, and just genetic. Retching is like violent vomiting. I don't think swallowing something too large could cause it, not that I'm aware of. Diverticulum is just outpouching. They can get like a pocket, and that's actually where the term halitosis comes from. The really bad breath. That's where it comes from. Food will get stuck in there, and then you breathe that out, that breath, and it's very foul because the food is just sitting there rotting in your esophagus. Lower esophageal sphincter, I also refer to it as the cardiac because of where the heart sits in location to that. That is where food is going to move from esophagus to stomach, needs to relax and then contract again. If it does not, you get heartburn. So what neutralizes the acid? That's going to be bicarb, which is HCO3. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, bicarb is what's going to play a role in neutralizing it. What about aminos? Lost me. So, esophagus, here we have.
That wasn't for you, sorry.
Huh?
That wasn't for you, sorry.
Oh, fine. Sharing with other people, not me. Rude.
I'm getting some right now.
So here's our esophagus, here's our stomach with the acid in there, here's our LES, okay, here's the diaphragm, so the esophagus does pass through the diaphragm, it is sealed off so that we can breathe. It will relax and let things through, and then it should tighten back up. If it doesn't, then the acid starts coming up, that's your reflux, your heartburn. If it's chronic, that's where you get into like GERD, talking about GERD. Babies commonly have it because the neural network and the smooth muscle is not fully developed yet. So like newborns commonly have GERD. They do outgrow it. But that's why they'll cough up milk commonly, and they're very fussy. They have weight issues, stuff like that. Colic is different, but colic kind of has the same premise. It has to do with like neural network is not fully developed yet, so the intestines are not functioning properly yet. Colic, but same concept in the end. Like they're not going peristalsis and segmentation like they should. So same thing, same end result. Laryngeotracheal clearance. That's a rare one. That is a rare one. So that was open. So even if his epiglottis worked, stuff was going into his lungs. Food was going into his lungs. That's not fun. I don't think I've ever seen that one. Learned about it, but that was it. Alright. So yeah, when we digest things, how do we do it? So we talked about mechanical, which is chewing, and then chemical. Chemical is like the big brunt of the work when you talk about the digestion process, because that's going to involve enzymes. Enzymes break things down. They are specific. They require water. Water allows them to break things. Hydro, water, lyse, break. So they're breaking components down to where we can absorb them. They need to be small enough to go through either the cell membrane or transporters, protein transporters. Okay? So we go through the duodenum, we start to break things down. We go through jejunum. At the jejunum, that's where a lot of digestion is done. It's finished. We've broken everything down, and then we absorb in the jejunum and ileum. damages a protein is going to damage an enzyme. So what damages proteins? pH and heat. And also salinity. That's another one. Okay. So anything that damages a protein damages an enzyme. Alright? Enzymes are specific for one reaction, meaning it is one key to one lock. That is all. It is not a master key. It doesn't work on multiple locks. One lock. Once you're done unlocking that lock, you can go back and do it on another lock, the same style. So enzymes are proteins. So pH and heat will affect enzymes. It'll denature them. They'll lose their nature. They don't work anymore. And then also salinity, but we don't really cover that. Salinity can affect enzymes too. So what do? They lower the amount of energy that is needed for a reaction to happen. They take, you can do it in less ATP or less time. So that is the reason, like, when we do not produce enough enzymes, we have a limited GI tract, a limited length, that we can't break things down. If our GI tract was much, much longer, we could start to break things down more, because the enzymes could work more efficiently then. So specific pH, specific temperature, really what that means is within body pH, body temp, that's where they work the best. You start going outside of that, you denature them, they don't work. So absorption, we've digested the food, we've broken it down into these small molecules, and we start to pull it into the bloodstream or into the lymphatics for fat. Okay, so where does it leave? It leaves the lumen, which is the tube. Okay, so that's the tube from here, the anus. We leave that and we enter the bloodstream. How do we get in there? We can either go right through the simple columnar, or we can go through transporters, and we can be absorbed that way. So it happens in the jejunum for the most part, and some in the ileum. So defecation, that's that undigested food. You ate too much, you don't have the enzyme to break it down, like the corn, cellulose, okay? And so you pass it out of you. Is that a bad thing? No, it is important to eat things like that. It helps lower insoluble fibers, like metamucil, cellulose, okay? So your celery, your salads, whatever. They help to get rid of cholesterol, so they can help lower cholesterol. They help move the stool, so there's not impaction, because when there is, over time, what happens to the large intestine, you eliminate a lot of the water, just waste. It starts to push on the walls, and cause outpouching there or diverticulosis, and eventually you're going to end up with diverticulitis, and you have to have a piece of your colon removed. You don't want to go there. So eat some veggies, okay? Normal flora, they consume it, so it helps with them. They can have normal flora on it, so that's a way to get bacteria into you within a controlled amount. If you go to Mexico, don't eat the salad there. I teach micro also. A lot of you took micro with me. That's a big no-no, and I know not to do that. My wife and I went to Puerto Vallarta for our anniversary this couple weeks ago, for our fifth anniversary. I survived 5 years. I'm sick to it, right? I ate salad on the last day like an idiot. Yeah, that was a week of Montezuma's revenge. It was glorious. Because on the upside, I lost some weight. Let me tell you, that was they wash the water. What happens with salad is it doesn't get heated, and so you don't put bacteria on it, the organisms. So what happens is they either cut it with a dirty knife, or the more likely thing is they wash it with tap water. And there's E. coli in it, and there you go. E-tech, traveler's diarrhea. Alright? Let me tell you, Puerto Vallarta is very pretty, but I don't think I'll be going again. And I had Caesar salad, so that had mayo in it. So it was either Staph aureus or it's E-tech. It's one of the two. It's just no winning, right? But yeah, it's a pretty location because we have the mountains. Tuesday morning, I step on a bee on the beach, so I get stung at the bottom of my foot. That was wonderful. So there's that. Day 2, they have saltwater crocs. There was a saltwater croc in the water, so they shut down the beach for the day. Saw a dead sea turtle on the beach. That was a little disturbing. And then there's stingrays all in the water. So my butt stayed in the pool near the bar, and I enjoyed myself. I read 2 novels. Good stuff. It's good stuff. So, but yeah, and that's how I enjoyed my break. Just adult beverage, a book, just let me be in peace. Anyhow, case of the unknowns. I knew what I had. Oh man. So, good times. Anywho, so defecation, that is passing stool out of the body, waste. All right. And there's 2 sphincters here, so 2 muscles that tighten down, and the internal anal sphincter is smooth muscle, involuntary. So this is the one, as it's stretched, it sends a signal to your brain that you need to pass stool, you need to defecate. The external anal sphincter, this is skeletal muscle. This is what you physically control. It's voluntary for when you want to pass stool, so when it's appropriate to pass stool. So it's kind of wild because this one works very early on, right? In under a year, this is working. In under a year, you can train this one and start to control it through your sleep. Even though it's voluntary, think about it. You don't poop your pants anymore, at least I hope not. Not significant other may pull the plug on you. Okay? So this one you control, okay? Up to a point. There is a point where you cannot control it anymore. Kendra, 10 inches, roughly. It's going to be mixed answers because it is passing from here to here, right? I'm 6'2". Mine is going to be longer than someone that's like 5 feet. So it's going to be an estimation there. But yeah, there have been cases where people control the external anal sphincter excessively. I remember I saw a case that can't see me. It might be your computer, your connection. That's usually what that is. Log out, log back in. There was a case where the child was, I think they were autistic or they had Downs, and for some reason they decided to hold their stool. They allowed their stool for something like a month, and they ended up like ripping their, I think they ripped like the transverse colon or something, or a second. So there are cases like that where people somehow control it. I don't know how, but that child did. I don't know, autistic or Downs, there's some type of IQ issue, something going on there. She held it. I remember it was a younger girl, she was like 14, 13, something like that. Why does bread or flour food cause constipation? It's probably just due to the lack of moisture. That's probably what it is, what they're looking for there. Well, to answer that question, I would assume lack of moisture. Alright, so yeah, no fiber. That's a good point too. Yeah, no fiber. So it just absorbs and sits. Yes, water is important. Can you reabsorb bad things in food? I mean, and then it would have been reabsorbed. Can you reabsorb from your stool? Yes. I mean, the bacteria would have to like make it through the cell surface, so I would say no in that aspect unless they damaged it, like in diverticulitis. In that situation, yes. That's the issue with like not having that fiber in your diet, is you start to get outpouching here, you get little like pockets here. So it'll look like the colon wall will look something like this instead. Okay? And then eventually stuff will get trapped in here. You'll get bacteria in here and this can rupture into the bloodstream. So in that situation, yes. Traditionally, no. Can things be absorbed in the large intestine? Yes, right? stick up here, suppositories. And actually, it absorbs very rapidly because it bypasses that hepatic portal system we're going to talk about. So it bypasses the liver and works very rapidly for that reason. So in that question, Mary, that is a misconception about celiac. That is a misconception. They think they have a gluten sensitivity or allergy. That is not true. If they have a gluten sensitivity or allergy, they should have diarrhea, not constipation. There was probably lack of moisture or lack of fiber in their diet, and that's why they're having constipation. The other issue is bread tends to be fortified with iron. Iron, especially if it's a male complaining of that, they have too much iron in their diet. So if they're eating like a lot of bread, beans, stuff like that, spinach, right? Spinach has iron. I can't even remember, oxalate. I think spinach, yeah. That would cause constipation. That's probably the root cause there. It's not the bread per se. When you reach diverticulitis, if it doesn't unpack itself and you give them antibiotics and it does not clear itself, they have to part of the point. So, not a fun process. So yeah, it happens. But you don't see diverticulitis until people are in their like 50s and on. And usually it's due to diet. So yeah. No. I'm just using the sigmoid here for representation, but it's anywhere in the large intestine. Usually it's in the descending and the flexion, which is between the transverse and the descending. It's usually in those areas because you've reabsorbed all the water, so it's really dry or compacted, and that's what you see it there. Could it be in the sigmoid? Yes, but typically it's in the descending. So yeah, so we have our internal sphincter and then our external. And so what happens is we get stretch here in the internal sphincter that sends up the sensory. It sends up a signal that, hey, there's stool here, you need to release it. And that's where we send the signal down voluntarily to the external sphincter, the skeletal muscle. Relax this, allow the stool to come out. Yes, Anova?
So why do we have hot stool? Does it mean
Why,
that all the water is absorbed?
Yeah, it's either there's not enough consumption of water. That's usually actually like the number one cause of constipation. Is not enough water in the diet, or too much iron, or not enough fiber. It's one of those. It's always one of those. And we drink a lot of coffee.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's not enough water, not enough fiber, or too much iron. Welcome. So yeah, here in the U.S. we're really bad about the coffee. I actually just stopped drinking coffee again. It was amazing. I've been off coffee for like a month now. It's kind of crazy. Maybe 2 months. I don't know. I decided, I was like, why am I doing this to myself every day? Yeah, I stopped. I know. I was like a coffee junkie. I'm like a caffeine junkie. And I've stopped caffeine completely.
But me, when I drink coffee, I go right away to the bathroom.
It is a stimulant, so it's also a stimulant. And so that's a lot of people when they consume like high dose caffeine, all of a sudden they feel like they need to pass stool. It is a stimulant. It causes people to pass the stool. It stimulates the muscles, and so it makes it feel like you need to go right away. But yeah, it's so much better. You don't realize how dehydrated you are, especially if you're drinking coffee every day. I guess so. Yeah, I always felt like I was chasing around hydrating myself, and now it's like I hydrate so easily. It is wild, and That's because caffeine works in your body for the half-life. I think we looked up as a half-life. So drink a cup of coffee. 5 hours later, you still have half a cup of coffee. 5 hours later, you have a quarter cup of coffee in your body. So, and we're going to talk about the effects of caffeine and alcohol on your body, but they actually inhibit ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and so they make your body just lose water, free water. So they dehydrate you very aggressively. So, yeah, something to think about. What's up, Dustin? So, another question, Dustin? Type. While she's typing. No, I can't hear you. Are you clicking your mic on? I'm not hearing her. Are you guys hearing her? No one's there. Okay. So let's click with your mic then. It doesn't work. The link, I don't think it works. Yeah, this link doesn't work. There you go, Stacy. There you go. Yeah, Destiny, just type up your question. Alright, so as far as the system goes, the digestive system, and really all the parts of the body, we're going to talk about visceral and parietal, okay? Visceral is a membrane, it's like a sheath stuck onto something. It's like, say this was an organ, and my skin that is stuck to my hand here, this is the visceral, okay? That's what's stuck to the organ. You can't really pull it off, it tends to make the organ shiny. And then the parietal is a separate one that is not stuck to it. It's actually between my hand right now, even though they're touching each other, there's like air, correct? So between the visceral and the parietal, there's always like fluid. And that fluid allows for there to be lack of friction, so there's not obstruction of the tissue. Because think about it, like all my organs that are passing through my body right now, I move around, right? So the outside of my body is moving, the inside of my body is moving, the organs are moving, if they're expanding and contracting and stuff like that. It just stops the degradation of the tissue. It doesn't allow it to rub against hard surface all the time and wear down. It also, when we talk about the different membranes, it separates them so that we talk about like compartments, stuff like that. So like there's lack of infection just transmitted throughout the body, and causing widespread infection. Okay, so visceral always means stuck to the organ, parietal to the outer cavity or body. Peritoneum, the second word, refers to what cavity we're in. So when we talk about peritoneum, we're in the abdomen. Okay, we're in the abdominal area. So visceral peritoneum means it's stuck to the organ in the abdominal area. Parietal peritoneum is stuck to the body wall in the abdominal area. Right? So visceral, intimately, so tightly around the internal organs. Parietal, abdominal wall. Serosa, visceral can be referred to as serosa too. It just kind of depends on where it's at, if it's fatty or not. That's really all that means. Sure. Yeah, they are opposed to each other, and they're important. Like especially when we talk about like in the lungs, that's what allows you to pull air into your lungs to create suction and vacuum. It plays a role in that. But yeah, they are opposite of each other. We'll talk about it more next class. We're going to end here because we're just run out of time, and I have another class after this. But yeah, so yeah, I'll answer your question, Jeanette, in a second. So for to be successful in this class, you need to fill out your lecture notes. So ideally, you want to have a good amount of digestive done before next class. We have 3 days to cover it, really 2.5. So you want to have a good amount of it done. You need to watch the videos to do that. fill out those lecture notes. Use the soft chalks to fill that out. Stay on top of your homeworks and your soft chalk assignments. Get it done. I encourage you guys to use things like group chats, study together, study first alone, and study in a group. That's how you're successful in that. As far as office hours, I'm available whenever I don't have class. If I'm on campus, you want to set up something to meet with me on campus. I'm only at the A&F campus this semester, or we can set up something online. Especially since you guys are on online class, I can set up a meeting room with you, and we can set up a time. Just email me, and we'll figure out the time when you meet. Cool. Cool. All right, guys, and you can study with anyone from AMP2. Make sure to visit the STEM Center. That is a great resource. Get your tutoring in. They are former students. Miss Wong Sam, she's still in here? She's still in here. She might want to give you guys a little rundown about it.
It's the Science Tutoring Center. We changed the name.
Oh, yeah. Changed the name. I forgot. Sorry. Great resource. She can give you guys a rundown on that. And then email me if you guys need me. If not, I will see you guys Wednesday.